Consciousness, the final frontier. These are the voyages into the universe between your ears. Our mission, to explore collective wisdom, seek out amazing secrets, and spread the message of personal potential. All right, hello everybody. I am Tim C. Starr. I'm your host for The Universe Between Your Ears. And normally I would be joined by my co-host, Mr. Gabi Musheyev, but because of difficulties scheduling this crazy thing, it's just me and our guest. And so you'll just have to suffer through. I know there's some Gabi fans out there, but I'm sorry. I'll do my best to put on a Russian accent. So you just got to look at my guest there, Miss Nicole Zeien. Did I say your last name correctly?
Yes, you did actually, surprisingly.
Only because I've heard, I think you and some other people say it. But. So I'm going to give you a short bio on her. Nicole is a project coordinator for a company called Startup Syndicate.
Yep. Production
manager for the Think Bold, Be Bold podcast. Her passion work includes being the author of her first book, Foster to Fosters, co-authoring in a second book called Obsessed with Parenting, speaking, sitting on the board for a nonprofit called Guardian Scholars Foundation, and she advocates for foster care and adoption. That's the short bio. I didn't go into any of her business ventures, really. That's a long list of stuff. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you.
And this people don't understand. This has been weeks in planning and emails back and forth and scheduling and rescheduling and finally we just gave up on trying to make it work for all three of us. And I said, let's just you and I do this. So yeah, welcome. Let's jump into this. I was looking at your website a little while ago. And I was finding some things that I didn't already know about you. I think okay. Let me say this first as a preface. The show is one of the goals of the show is with each episode we want to give audience members something that they might be able to latch onto and put to use in their own lives. And I haven't heard the story yet, but from what I gather, you've got a hell of a story to tell. And it's inspirational. It's a story of overcoming, and so that I think is where I would like to start this conversation, if that works for you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I'm going to turn it over to you right now. Go ahead, jump in and fly this thing for us.
All right. So are we beginning with my life story? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think so. You're coming out of, you went through a foster care system.
Yes.
Correct. And so you've got things to say about that. And let's start there. And because that's what your book is about too, right?
It is. Yeah. So Foster to Fosters is really kind of me walking the readers through, why I was put into foster care, my adoption story, and then leading into why I got put back into foster care. So a little unique. And I'll share that story. So, growing up, it was my younger sister and I, we were with our biological mom up until I was 2 and she was 1. At that time, my biological dad, he was in prison. Both my parents really struggled with addiction, and they both had, really tough upbringings themselves. And, they just kind of got into the wrong crowd, fell into that, and, they weren't really able to escape that lifestyle. And, they did have us little girls. And, my mom, there came a day where she said, hey, I can't do this. It was, just 2 of us. And she put us into foster care voluntarily. Sometimes when you're in the foster care system, you're actually taken away from your parents. But in this case, my mom actually made a really good decision saying, hey, I can't do this. I can't be your mom. There's more for you girls out there. So very thankful she came to that conclusion, because if she didn't, who knows what would happen to us or our life, or if I would even be here now. So it was a blessing. So we were in foster care. We went into 2 different homes before we were adopted into our forever family. So we were 4 and 5 when we were adopted. of course, I was the older one. And, I grew up in a small town. I'm from Iowa now. And yeah, just grew up in a small town, had my two adopted brothers and my older sister. They were great. They accepted us as their little sisters, like we were, not even adopted. And I struggled a little bit more than my younger sister. And now since I'm older, I've kind of put it together. When you're, about born until 2 years old, you really develop that love and attachment and those emotions. A lot of people know that. And, just how our lifestyle was at that time, we didn't have a lot of that bonding or nurturing and loving. And the little we did was with our mom. So then she gets out of the picture, and I was old enough to know, hey, these strangers aren't my family. I don't belong here. This isn't right. So that led to a lot of difficulties throughout my entire youth. I never felt like I belonged in this new family, even though they did their best. They tried. It's just, I just knew. I'm like, I have so much family out there. Where are my younger brothers? Once we got a little older. And it was tough because we had an open adoption, meaning, if our biological mother chose, she could see us and she could visit. And, again, she was an addict. So it was just so sporadic, and maybe she would show up and maybe she wouldn't. And that was just really hard for two little girls to understand why their mom didn't want to see them. She was suffering from addiction, and we didn't know what that meant or anything. So, our parents did our best. When we got kind of into our teen years, that's kind of when I started to rebel. Again, I just had this headstrong mindset. I wanted to take care of myself. I didn't need anyone. And I think a lot of teenagers have that, but I think I had that 10 times worse the average kid. And, my mom even tells a story. I shared it in my book. I just think it's so funny. So I grew up in the Gravels. Gravels, New Hampton, Iowa. And we were probably 6 miles out of town easy. And I guess one day I wanted to go to the swimming pool. I was like 10 years old. And she told me she wasn't going to take me. I couldn't go. So I walked all the way to town. And so that shows you the character I was. If I couldn't do something, I was going to find a way to do it. I was going to get my way. And yeah, so getting into teen years, I was a little tough. I wanted to go hang out and party with older kids, and because I've never been my age, even now, you'd probably think I'm in my 30s. I'm only 23, and I've always carried myself that way. I've always been wise beyond my years, and that got me in trouble when I was younger. From 14 to 16, I was in a respite home. So for the listeners that aren't sure what respite is, it's kind of a service that is within the foster care community. So if the foster parents have to go on vacation or, they're just having some difficulties, they can put, their kids in a temporary placement, which is called respite care. So I went to this respite home, and I also shared that in my book, and it was... I don't want to swear in here, but it was kind of...
Go ahead. If it's...
I can.
Be who you are.
It was seriously like a house from hell. I'm not even kidding. It was like a little boot camp, I swear. And this lady, she was just awful. She really was. And she should have been one of those people that shouldn't be allowed to foster. And I openly spoke about it in there. I put on makeup because, you're a 14-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl. You're going to wear makeup. And she told me to...
I went through that. Yeah.
She told me, she goes, wash that off your face. You look like a whore. Or I had these ripped jeans at the time. That was cool. The denim distress jeans. And I was so proud of these jeans because I bought them from the Buckle. So at the time they were really expensive, and I saved up all my money. I worked, and I thought these jeans were just so cool. And she cut them up in front of me and said, nobody should wear these jeans. Oh man, she took me to Goodwill. She made me wear pants above my belly button. And I was an 8th grader going to school dressing like I was 40. So it was just crazy. I had my friends sneak me like fashionable clothes to school. And, she even down to the food, she had separate food for her foster children or whoever she was caring for. And yeah, I wasn't allowed to eat the hot meals they had. I had to only have meals from the certain drawer, sandwiches. So then I went on a hunger strike and said, I'm not going to eat here then. And I didn't. So it was just crazy. It was not a good time. For a while that shaped me up, so to say. I was scared. I'm like, I don't want to go back there. It's kind of that wake up call or whatever you want to say. I went through a honeymoon phase. A couple months later, kind of rebelled again. I ran away with a friend of mine. Funny story. If you actually Google my name, you'll see I ran away, and it was just a crazy time. Ran away from home. It was, what was it now? Now I got to think back. It was over a week that we were gone, and again, things just were rough at home. I didn't want to be there. I thought that was the solution. I don't know. I was dumb and young, and I wasn't thinking. So that resulted in me going to detention center, which was called Bremwood here in Iowa. And it's basically where, the bad kids go. It's, that detention center. And I was surrounded around kids who had killed other kids. I mean, raped other kids, the scariest thing. And I sat there, I'm like, I just ran away from home. I don't deserve to be here. I'm not a bad kid. And so I was in there 13 days. And again, that was another wake up call. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to get my stuff together. I just need to listen. I know when I'm 18, and that was the gold number. I just kept thinking, when I'm 18, I could do whatever I want. I can be who I want, and I don't have to listen to anyone. So go home for a couple more weeks, and of course something happens again, and that third time was when I went back into the foster care system. So I went to a home, and thankfully, this family is amazing. I speak very highly of them in my book, and they're just very nurturing. They adopted 4 younger girls, and they had their own biological kids as well, and they were just the sweetest people. But yeah, I was in there for 3 months, but it was tough. Now I was a sophomore in high school. I had to totally switch schools. I was ripped away from all my friends, my little sister. I couldn't have a cell phone. And of course, that was just detrimental at that time. And I had a boyfriend at the time, and I couldn't see him, and the world was just ending. Yep. But yeah, 3 months later, I was able to go home. And pretty much from then, I finally realized, hey, I can't win. I can't beat the system. I can't beat my parents. I have to wait till I'm 18. And the day I turned 18, I moved out of my house. So, in a nutshell, that's kind of what happened.
All righty then. So
I know.
Yeah. So, honestly, I've heard worse stories, but for each of us, when we're in the middle of stuff, it doesn't matter what anybody else went through.
Right.
It's us, man, and this is the end of the world.
Yeah.
So you get out of foster care, and we're not that far down the road from then. So you've done something at a really young age that lots of people, most people by far, who would like to do, never do, and that's write a book. So what was, when you decided to write the book, what was the goal? Were you just like working out anxieties for yourself, or did you have a particular, what was the purpose of the book, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting you said that, because, the anxiety part, that wasn't the beginning, but I felt that was the solution. I was actually able to work through a lot of things that I didn't realize I was still struggling with. And yeah, really why I wrote the book was for my sister and my twin nieces. So now it would be about 1.5 years ago that I wrote this. We just found out my sister was pregnant. So this is the sister I was adopted with. And, we're sidekicks. We've been through all this together. We're the only 2 people that have consistently been there for each other since we were born, kind of thing. It's just a very special bond we have. And yeah, so I love her so much, and she became pregnant, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're pregnant, you're my younger sister, what are we going to do? And at the time I was working full time, going to school full time, and I just knew I wanted something more for myself and her and this new baby on the way. And then we find out it's twin girls. So I'm like, oh my gosh, now we have like double the work. What are we going to do? And that's really when I started looking into entrepreneurship and, creating life on your terms and, all those things. Cause I didn't want to work full time, not be involved in their lives. I wanted to make more money so I could support them and she could stay home with the girls and all that stuff. So my first mentor, Brandon T. Adams, he's a big part of my story and how I got to where I am. I finally called him up. I heard him keynotes like 1 year prior to that. And I was so inspired. I just remembered he said, if someone has a story, you have to tell it. You need to give that to the world, your story. And I was like, I have a story, I just shared that little piece of it. That's a very brief side of it. But, I sat there, I'm like, I do have a story, maybe I can use this to my advantage and, make something from it. So we got on a call and from there it was born. He goes, can you write this in 30 days? And I was like, can I write a book in 30 days? No, can you? And he goes, yeah. And people have done it. And I'm like, we already talked about my personality. I'm like, challenge accepted. We're going to write this in 30 days. So even though I was going to school full time, working full time, I still got that book done in 30 days. And many sleepless nights, but it was so worth it. And, I learned that if you set your mind to something, you can actually do it, and
Yeah.
that it's just, and having that why was so strong for me. And, I preach a lot about that because if it wasn't for my sister and, her becoming pregnant and, the background, all those emotions flooding to me, I just kept thinking, I'm like, I don't want these two little girls to be the little girls that we were, no
Right.
support, all that. And I was like, they will have a good life. I'm going to make sure of it and they're going to be loved. So that was why I wrote it.
This sounds like your sister lives with you?
She's very close to me. We do live in separate houses now, but last year we lived together. We're like 6 minutes apart, but
okay.
Yeah.
So, so it does sound like you wrote it because you felt like you needed to tell it.
I did.
It was not necessarily even so much that you had any particular purpose for it, but you needed to get it out.
Right. And, that was the initial, do it for my sister and the girls and start speaking and make that a career and give back, but then I started going along and I got so much feedback and positive feedback from foster parents reaching out to me, thanking me. And I'm like, people are thanking me. This is the strangest thing. Or foster youth would message me, Facebook, Instagram, all those things, and, send me the cutest, heartfelt messages that I gave them hope. And they realized if I can do it, they can do it. And I inspired them. And I can't even tell you guys how that feeling, I can't even describe it. And I sat there, I'm like, people need me to advocate. They need my voice. And, I've always been outspoken, obviously, a little loud. And I'm like, I want to be this person to step up. I want to be the role model. Even if my life is put on blast and shared to the world, so what? I don't care, And that's why in that book, it's so raw and real. And a lot of the testimonies you'll read, like, this is a really raw and real approach. And I told everything. It's like you're standing in front of the world naked. But I wasn't scared anymore because I'm like, this has a purpose. I'm going to help people.
Yeah, and there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
Right? That's an interesting quirk in the human psyche, I think, is that we go through things when we're young that, in large part, we have no control over it.
Yeah.
Right? It's when you're 7, what can you do to derive your life, to direct your own life, right? Not a hell of a lot. And so you go through some experience, no matter what it is. And then, 10 years down the road, you feel embarrassed that you went through this. It doesn't make any sense. Why should you?
Right.
It's, we all go through, we all have stuff. and to think that somehow, we're the only ones that, or you wouldn't, if you had a conversation with somebody else, you and I having a conversation about, and this comes up and you say, I feel embarrassed about it. I'm going to go, well, why should you? And if I was the one saying, this thing happened to me and I feel embarrassed about it, you're going to feel the same. Well, why should you feel embarrassed about it? It wasn't your doing. Right. But we're still wired that way.
I know. And it's just the craziest thing. And for so long, that's why I kept quiet about, what happened to me, my story. And even, a lot of my family, I still deal with a lot of backlash. Sure. Aside from my sister, nobody is happy I wrote that book because, I was very respectful.
That means you're honest.
I was. And
That's what that means.
And I could have even put more stuff in there, but for the sake of reputations and everything, I'm like, I need to give just enough, and so, yeah.
Well, kudos to you. You're going places. So there's so many different directions to go here. One of the things, and you said it, you were, I guess, wise beyond your years, or at least, thinking in a different manner than other people at your age. I know when I was at age, I moved out of the house when I was a senior in high school, but I moved out with my girlfriend. And that was an adventure, but it completely changed my focus in life. I was lucky to graduate, even though school was easy and I was an A student and all of this stuff. But my focus changed dramatically, after that, and I just didn't want to go to school. There was nothing there were no classes I was taking that were doing anything for me. It was stuff to fill the time so that I could, when June came around, I could get my thing,
Yeah.
But yeah, I never would have thought to write a book about experiences that I had. And I had, if I wanted to go back, there's stuff I could come up with a story about. But yeah, so I don't know where I'm going. I'm just rambling. But yeah, so congratulations on getting it done. Kudos on the success.
Thank you.
And I wish you so much more. So let's talk about what this means for other people, right? Or what it can, not what it means, but what it can mean, right? Because we're presented with opportunities and inspiration all the time.
Yeah.
It's up to us to do something with it. So somebody who's hearing this, what's your perspective on what the big lesson, one or two of the big lessons might be?
Yeah, I think a big one is, and I share this quite often, but, it really doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, you get to decide who you're going to be, even as a foster youth, that's a big one. Statistically, I shouldn't have graduated college. I should have been pregnant. I should have been in jail or killed. There's so many scary statistics, and really, you can overcome them. You get to decide your future and what happens. So a lot of us, I think, get so stuck in the past and, hurt by the trauma or, events, people, places, that all these things that happen. But, if we just look far ahead and decide where we want to be, we get to create that. It's all mindset. And I know you're huge on mindset as well. So that's, that's a really big one. It's so easy to feel bad for yourself and wallow and not do anything. But, you feel a heck of a lot better when you start to do something. And, same with my book. I held on to a lot of that, pain and that, all that trauma for so long. And the minute I shared it and did it for the greater good, I felt just like a weight was lifted off. And I no longer felt sorry for myself for that I was weird or, my family was crazy and all these things. I'm like, it's normal. What's normal, And so that's a big one. And, just overcoming that adversity, we all have the strength. And, sometimes it just takes that one person to say the right things. So just always be listening and, keep connecting with people because you never know who you'll meet and how they can change your life. Yeah.
You also never know how you can change their life.
Yeah.
And that will do tremendous things for you.
Right.
So, yeah, there's so many, and for anybody who's listening, one of the keys to, if you're at beginning stages of personal growth or however you want to look at this, if you're feeling overwhelmed by life in general and you know there's something more, or maybe it's not overwhelmed, maybe you're just feeling frustrated, but you don't know why. If you want to start some movement, some momentum on this path, that we all travel our own paths, right? And we all have the opportunity to grow as individuals. It doesn't happen for everybody for various reasons, but I think it's part of what we are that we wanted. So if you're hearing what Nicole is saying and feeling like, okay, that's all great, but I don't know where to start, what I would suggest is don't worry about finding a particular starting point. Right? What worked for me may not work for you. What works for Nicole may not work for you. It's okay to sample 100 different things until you find something that clicks, and you'll find something. And so you just got to find a little something, and it doesn't have to be a big deal, a little something that moves you out of the chair that you're sitting in right now. And just a little something that gets you going, and you will find more. And pretty soon you'll build up some momentum and you won't have to worry about it.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. All right, then we're fixing the world right here. So what I have seen is that you're speaking, you're doing public speaking. Mm-hmm. I've seen that you're mentoring or coaching parents. Is that correct?
I I would, yeah, see, going back to the sampling thing, I mean, I dipped into that a little bit, but I don't think that's my passion. That's more if people come to me. I, started a branch off my brand where I was going to be the foster coach. Surprisingly, that name wasn't even taken. I still have the domain and all that fun stuff, but, I decided I'm like, I don't really want to coach foster parents, not as my main focus. But of course, if somebody comes to me and it's a fit, yes. But, I don't emphasize on that. A lot of it's just been, me, I'd pick up the phone with them, just talk them through. That's more my passion work.
Yeah. I'm so jealous of your clarity.
Don't be.
God.
It's been frustrating and it's been expensive.
You don't know frustrating yet. No, but I say that, jokingly, but it's true. I'm going on 60 and I'm still struggling with it.
Yeah.
But to be 20 something and to be able to say, I don't want to do this, even though I have the opportunity to do it. People are bringing it to me. I don't really want to do this, and I'm going to say no. That's a level of confidence. It's a level of clarity. It's a level of knowing that lots and lots of people never achieve, and to be in that position at your age is amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. And going back to that, I think really why I love speaking so much is because you can speak to an unlimited audience, share the same message, and help so many more people. And I'm all about, conserving my time and being efficient. And I sat there, I'm like, okay, say I have 4 clients and I'm working with the families, what if I can have a room full of 4,000 people instead? And then I can help more. So yeah, I sat there and I was like, I don't want to do this. So I didn't.
I think it's so cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. At your age, I never would have wanted to be a speaker.
Yeah.
No, I'm basically an introvert and I don't need to be on the stage. But, the interesting thing is when you have a message and something comes to you and you feel like you have something to share, then your perspective on what you would do changes without any struggle. That was an interesting thing. There's no I've got this important thing to say, but I don't want to be a speaker. I don't want to do that. And there are other ways to get a message out, but for me at least, it once I felt like I wanted to put something out there for other people, being a speaker that was okay. This is part of the program. All right, what do I have to do? So that's an interesting phenomenon too. Where is this taking you now? What's like on your immediate horizons? What do you tell us about the nonprofit a little bit? And what do you
Yeah, I get really excited and passionate about this because I was actually a recipient of this scholarship when I was in college. And I just, so basically the Guardian Scholars Foundation, we help foster youth or, adopted youth that have aged out and now want to go to college. A lot of times financial aid can't foot the whole bill, especially if they want to go to a, traditional university. So we step in, we help them with, extended resources, the cost, and, that mentorship. So for me, I'm like, this is perfect, I finally can make change, work really with these kids and, get them on the right path. So I kept a really good relationship with the executive director. His name's Tom. He's just such a beautiful soul. And they sent me care packages, like all these fun things, even after I graduated. And we still kept talking. I was doing the book, the speaking, all that stuff. And he came to me and asked, hey, would you be willing to sit on the board? And I was like, oh my gosh, a board member? And I just thought that was the coolest thing. And I said, of course, yeah. So he ran it by the other members. And, just with my age demographic, what I've been through, I was just such a unique asset. Because, a lot of the board members are, at least a couple decades older than me. Some of them have been through care, some of them haven't. And, having a millennial on the board is actually a huge strength. And I don't think they saw it until then. So, yeah, it's been awesome. hardest part is going through the applicants. You know, it's so heartbreaking to only be able to give 2 or 3 the scholarship when there's 10 or 15 that deserve it. And I wish I just had the money to say, hey, here, let's put you through college. Let's find out what you want to do. And that's why I'm creating this life and doing this. And I have the means to do that because that makes me happy. That makes my heart smile, you know? And so for now, I can do what I can and, of course, give my time. And through them, I'll be doing a lot more speaking as well. We're going to do some fundraisers and stuff like that. So I'll kind of do the fundraising and, you know, sponsorship part of it. And yeah, it's just been really amazing. So I encourage you guys to check it out. They are based in Iowa. I think one day, if this is possible, I'd love it to be like a statewide program, but it's hard enough for us finding funding in Iowa. So, but yeah, it's just absolutely.
The money's out there, you know, the money's out there. You've got to find a way to get in front of it.
I know. I've been brainstorming some ideas. So a lot of, you know, I haven't marketed my book in such a long time. You know, I've taken so many pivots because I was trying to make that dream while going broke. And, you know, for a while I was making such good money and this and that. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, paid speaking gigs are really hard to find all the time, you know, and nobody knows me yet, just this small niche. And that can be enough, but, you know, the budgets aren't there. And I'm like, okay, so I need to work hard at the things I'm good at, you know, my copywriting and marketing consulting, and then what I do for the other companies. And when I have enough money, then I can keep giving back. So, you know how we're talking about clarity? I don't really feel clear because I'm always like running back and forth, but I'm still giving a little bit of myself to everything.
Well, yeah, no, the clarity thing though is you're clear enough to be able to say no.
Yeah.
Right. And I think most people aren't.
Yeah.
Most people tend to just, and certainly I was doing this through most of my life, was just, you know, an opportunity comes in, you know, for a job that pays more money than what you're working at now. Doesn't matter much what the job is. You just say yes. Right. And there's no thought to, is this a smart career move? Yeah. Right. Even if it's not truly career that you're looking at, you just don't give any thought to whether or not this is going to move you in a direction that is going to be, you know, fulfilling. Is this going to is this something I'm going to want to do for a long time? Right. Even that far. I know. The internet the world is such a different place because of the internet. You don't even know because you're just way too young. It's always been here for you. But prior to the internet, man, you just didn't know about anything. There was all the same information. Well, not all, right? But there was tons and tons and tons of information that was always around, but access to it was difficult. Right. And you know, your best resources were basically the library. And you had to go and manually look through a catalog, all of these cards to find a book, you know, and then go look for it. Forget about Kindle or Audible, you know. But so the point being that people didn't know what they didn't know. And internet comes along, and it took a few years, but eventually, you know, it's kind of grown up. It's grown up a lot from where it was. Who knows what the heck it's going to be, you know, 5 years from now. But yeah, you can sit down now and Google anything literally and find it. Yeah. And so which is kind of a double-edged sword, I suppose, because now there's too much. Yeah. Now you got to figure out what you like, you know. Right. But it's a better place to be at than having just feeling like there's nothing to choose from. Right. Which, and I think, I think it's an interesting point too. You know, a lot of people, when they feel stuck, you know, a lot of times they're like, oh, I have to go hire a coach or a mentor. And I totally do believe in that. But at the same time, a lot of that stuff they're going to tell you or teach you, you can Google and find out yourself. Yeah. So that's the difference between getting it from YouTube and getting it from somebody who you're face to face with is that you don't feel there's no accountability to somebody online or in a video. and there's no commitment there.
Yeah.
Because you can just say, I don't like what he's saying, I'm done.
Right.
But if you're paying for a coach, that's a harder thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
It is. Yeah.
Not that it's impossible, because I've certainly spent money on things and then just completely ignored it. But
I know. I've been in both boats. You know, I think maybe that would be more of a point if your budget's low and you're in that mindset or that feeling like, oh, I can't do anything, I'm broke, or oh, this, you know, the excuses part. We have the internet at our fingertips and any resource we could possibly want. So start there and then save up for the coach.
Yeah. And you know, it's not to say that people can't do it the other way.
It's just challenging.
Yeah, there's less commitment. You know, and you can stand up and go get a sandwich anytime you want, and you know, there's no homework that you're accountable for. There's no nothing. But you know, there are plenty of people who, and I am not good at holding myself accountable. So if I had something that I'm struggling with, and I really feel like I need to find an answer, I need a coach in some format. Finding somebody to watch over YouTube and stick to what they tell me to do, I'd have a hard time.
And I'm huge on accountability partners, and, you know, use your network. I have probably a good 3 of them that I check in with at least once a week, if not more. And we go over, hey, what's your goals? What are you working towards? And we'll pop in, hey, how's that going? Why isn't it going well? And just getting on the phone and venting and getting that clarity from another person. Like, hey, this is what's going on in my mind. How does it sound? Am I crazy? Or what needs redefined? Or what are you hearing? And that's a big thing too. We all have so many people around us, you know, and of course, if you have a good relationship, you can utilize that and, you know, just have them be your accountability partners.
I think you're lying. I don't think you're in your 20s.
I know.
I think you're 40 something.
It's so funny. I feel it. I really do feel old. If I didn't have makeup on, you guys would see the bags. I'm like a night owl.
So, you know, you tangentially touched something that I want to get into, and I had recorded another podcast yesterday with Laura Peterson.
Oh, she's awesome.
And we got into this yesterday on that conversation. But you know, the one thing that we tend to not pay any attention to is, all right. So I'm going to add a little something first. Our brains are wired in such a way. We've got these programs that have been built up over the years, and we have so much data coming at us every second of the day, and our brains are wired to filter out, I think the number is 96%. So we hold on to 4% of what's coming in, and it's only the information that reinforces the programs that we already have. So something new comes in, and it's counter to something that we believe, whether we're conscious of it or not, or it just doesn't fit into the box that we built. We discard it, right, without paying any. We're not even conscious of any of this. But so we're just constantly reinforcing our belief system. And so in part of that process is we hang out with people who also believe the same things. And so we say the same, we complain about the same stuff, and we reinforce what the other guy is saying, and it makes us feel better, I think, in some way, but it doesn't necessarily move us forward.
Right.
So where I'm getting to with this is there is apparently a proven adage that you will be the sort of the average of the 5 people you hang out with most. And the people that this might be 5 different people for different categories of life. But let's say you've got 5 other people who you spend a lot of time talking about relationships with. If they're not in good relationships, they don't have the capacity to give you good relationship advice.
Right.
Right. It's possible to give good advice as you're not in the moment where you're not in a good relationship, if you've been in good relationships, right? But you need that experience. But if you're hanging out with people who are, let's use you, if you're hanging out with other people who are 23 years old, they haven't had the life experience.
Yeah.
They just can't, they don't have that level of understanding yet to be able to give you truly good relationship advice. They just haven't been on the planet long enough. And if that's an important issue for you, you really want to know how to have a better relationship, whether you're in one or planning to be in one. You need to be asking for that advice from somebody who's been there, done that. Mm-hmm. Right? And I really believe that whether they're there and doing it in the moment is a little bit irrelevant, but they need to have been there and done that at some point. Mm-hmm. And the same applies to financial advice. Just pick it, whatever the area is. So yeah, getting together with people on a regular basis, like you're doing, checking in and talking about what are your goals and that kind of, those are obviously not people who are going to pull you down when you start making progress, right? They're not people who are going to point out all of the reasons why you shouldn't be able to succeed at what you want to do. Those are people who are going to say, all right, what are you struggling with? How do we help you? Right? Let's find a way to get an answer for Nicole. And that's so important. And that's why another reason why that's why it came out that you're not 20 anymore. But it's an important thing. And especially when we're young, we don't think about that stuff.
Yeah.
It just doesn't come onto the radar.
Right. Yeah. And going along that too, I think I always struggle with age because I'm like, the number is so irrelevant. I think for some, it's a little, obviously if it's like me and then an 8-year-old, yeah, they're going to be much older. But, a lot of times, like, just your experiences and the things you felt and been through, that shapes and adds way more years onto, what you really should be. And that wisdom, and so I sometimes get a lot of backlash, like, oh, like you're only this age. And once I hear that, so usually I just leave my age out of everything. I'm like, it's not really relevant how old I am or not. It's how I perform, what I've done, and the person I am. Here you go.
I think for most people, it's normal to be skeptical of somebody who's young and wanting to give you advice about something. But if you can get the opportunity to open your mouth and talk, then that concern will go away for most people. Yeah. There are some people who are just going to hang on to it and just cross their arms and I don't care what she says, she's too young.
I know. People like that are my favorite. I love a challenge.
Why doesn't that surprise me?
I think there's something wrong with me, but seriously, I'm just like, then I just kind of like, oh, how are you today? And I can be like the best customer service rep in the world, I swear. I get a kick out of it. It's like, why are you so dang grumpy? Like, there's no reason to be, but we all have our days. But yeah, people like that, they're a treat.
All right, so I'm gonna change the subject a little bit. One of the things that I think you mentioned actually while we were talking early on, and this idea of being able to create your future, create your life. I'm in total agreement, and so I just want to get your perspective on it. Mm-hmm. What I call myself a hopeful skeptic, and meaning that just, you're up on stage or you're in a book or you're on a recording and you're telling me about how great something is and how it worked for you. I'm taking this in and going, great, sounds good. Hasn't worked for me yet. I don't know. I'm not buying it yet. Right? You got to show me how I can prove this to myself.
Right.
And things like, here's the science that backs up this statement, go a long way for me. Mm-hmm. So I have my perspectives that bring science into the law of attraction idea, and that helps me feel really, really confident and comfortable about it. But so I'd like to get your take on what makes you feel like, anybody can create their own future.
I think it's up to us, and it's hard as hell, and you got to be willing to do whatever it takes, but it is possible, like sometimes you're just going to have to do things you don't want to do. I had to start bartending at nighttime. I recently told you that, and that's actually, I was kind of hiding it because people are like, oh, she's this lifestyle entrepreneur. She's doing all these things. And, sometimes the money's not always there. It's going to be there. And sometimes it's really awesome. Like you have really good months, and other months it's like, how am I going to pay my rent? How's this going to work? But if you are just consistent and somewhat of an idea of what you want, it'll come, and that again, it'll attract you. If money is what you want, find something that people need or want and keep working towards that. Even though my book, and there's so many things in the background, I'm waiting for a second edition on my book, but to do that, I have to go meet my birth dad. To do that, I need this documentary deal to come through. And there's just so many steps, and that all takes time. That's out of my, it's out of my jurisdiction. I can't control it. So, I think we all can. But some people just don't want that either. Like my hometown, my family, they don't understand me. They don't understand why I do what I do, why I quit my job. My mom said she's like, when you quit your job, I could have just strangled you. And of course she was kidding, but she's like, what, I was on salary. I was 21. I was salaried in the company. I was already moved up 2 or 3 spots from when I started, had benefits, everything. And she's like, you are so dumb. Why did you throw that away? I'm like, because that's not what I want. I want more. And they still don't get it. We're still working on it. But
that's a very, everybody talks about this, but it's a very Midwest mindset.
It is very much so. Because
there's so much coming out of the Midwest. It's a blue collar part of the country, really, overall. And I'm from the south side of Chicago, and then you go to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You get up and you go to work, and there isn't a lot of, especially when I was younger, the idea of becoming an entrepreneur, the idea of doing something that makes you feel like you're contributing to the world, the idea of giving back, right? These things, they're just, like I said a minute ago, they're just not even on the radar.
Right.
It's not that you would hear it and go, oh no, that's stupid. It just never comes to you. Mm-hmm. And it's just, okay, it's Monday morning. I got to get up and go to work.
Yeah. And I hate that. I absolutely hate that. And, that's why why we struggled so much. And, just growing up, hard work was distilled in me from as soon as I got to that placement, their house, and I mean, we picked rock. They had many businesses. The first one, they had a skating rink, so we had to be in charge of the candy counter, the cash register. We learned all about money, the taxes part, all that stuff. And then they had a table and chair business. Then they went and bought a bunch of rental houses, and we'd help them with that. So we were always working. I got my first job when I was 14. Hard work is still distilled in me. And that's a strength now, because that's why I'm able to do all these things that I do. And people are like, how are you doing all these things? I don't know what else to do if I'm not, That's all I know, and I love it. It's kind of a thrill to me to work on different projects, help different people, talk to different people. I get so bored doing one thing. That's why I'm not a good employee, really, because I'm like, okay, I learned this, and I always have to be learning something. I'm like a sponge, like we all should be, but I learned something from everyone, and I never think I know everything, because I don't. And I think that's where I've got a lot of my wisdom. I'm always seeing, hey, what can I learn from you? How can I apply that to what I'm doing, or better myself, or, add a new skill to my skill set, all those things. And, some people just don't have that, but it's a good thing to have.
This comes up, has been coming up in a lot of conversations that I've been in lately. And, part of it is it's like the Matrix option, Neo, do you want to take the pill that's going to show you the reality and make life hard, but you'll understand the truth, or do you want to take the other one that's going to let you go back in and just be unaware of the world, right? You could be happy over here maybe, and you'll be safe and all that, but you're going to be unaware. The problem is if you take this pill that's going to show you the world, there's no going back.
Yeah. And
I know people who consciously resist taking that pill, and I don't remember which, let's say it's the blue pill that is going to show you everything. They don't want it, and they're aware that they don't want it. They've got their box. They've got the answers to the questions that they're willing to ask. They don't want to ask questions outside of this, and those of us who can't live in that box, right? Look at them, and there's a certain amount of, I don't want to use the word pity, but it's man, it's like you're missing so much.
Yeah.
Right? You're safe and comfortable until somebody comes along and pops the bubble, and hope it doesn't happen. But the reality is it probably will at some point. Mm-hmm. And if it does, the longer you live and inside of your set answers for whatever the questions might be, if you're 60 and that blows up on you, man, you're in trouble. You're gonna spend the rest of your life probably fighting with acceptance of, because there's all these different ways of looking at everything. Mm-hmm. I'm rambling, but
no, it's good.
It's a that mindset. It's weird the more I think about it. You've got like this. You got millions of people in a geographical area who are all operating on that method. Of don't make me question anything.
Yeah.
I part of it is responsibility. That's a big piece of, because if I all right, so talking about this stuff, and I don't want to go, I don't want to take over, but when you realize that you have some control, you have influence is a better word. You have a lot of influence over what life is going to bring you just by what you think about. And you start to understand when you understand that you're responsible for the choices that you made and the actions that you took that brought you to where you are. Mm-hmm. When that light comes on and you go, okay, I'm going to own it. I can see how I did these things and it's me. Right behind that is a realization that, well, whatever happens tomorrow is me too. Mm-hmm. In a week down the road and 10 years down the road, the rest of my life is on me. That brings in the R word, the responsibility, and that freaks people out. It's so much easier to be the victim.
Yeah.
And and then you lean towards what's supposed to be safe, which is the go get the job and get the salary and stay with that company and the benefits and stay there until you retire, and then you'll get the pension,
And for people my age, that might not even be there.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah. There's so many people who played that game and they were 39 years into a job and the company goes out of business.
Yeah. Oof.
There's no pension.
I know. And even like the more I get on this entrepreneur journey, some of the stories, like your story you opened up, there's so many people that dedicate their life to this job and then it's just pulled from them. And it's like,
yep.
What was it for? You had no backup, no security. You thought you're safe. So really what you're doing isn't safe at all. And yeah, I have this argument with my parents often.
It's so less safe than the only, yeah. And you have no influence over that.
Yeah.
That's 100% out of your hands.
Right.
You walk in the door one day and they go, you know what, we're closing. Mm-hmm. Or we're downside. I had that happen, right? It was a contract position, but I went to work at a place and I was there 1 week, come in the following Monday, and one of the guys says, "Did you hear?" No, what? It's Monday. What did I hear? What should I have heard? Oh, they're downsizing. They're closing this facility. And so I got a month of paycheck out of that job, but you're in, you're out.
Yeah.
It's and then there's stuff in San Diego. We've had some huge fires over the last 10 years, 2 really, really big ones with like hundreds of thousands of people being evacuated out of their houses and homes burned all over the place and businesses being burned up. Stuff like that can happen. Forget about somebody selling the business or downsizing or not managing the money, right? And so they're going out. Mother Nature comes in and drops a tornado on the place of business where you work, guess what? You're out of a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah, it's just all out of our control. And
Yeah.
I think even, so if you are scared, if you're listening, you're scared to make the jump or you're not ready yet, at least start working towards some type of side hustle, something that will give you, those legs to stand on if everything falls apart, because it could. And it probably will, honestly, at one point or another. So, and it could be anything. I mean, there's so many different little extra ways to make cash or start something, and just start with what you love and what you're good at and make it a business. I'm a firm believer that anything can be made into a business.
Yeah. And, and one of the other things I was talking about with Laura is that if you're good at something, right, and it could be something that you do on the job, but if you're good at it, there are other people who are not as good as you. And depending on what it is, there's a fair chance that you could put together a little training, whether it's an online course or, and writing a book doesn't mean you write War and Peace, right? Writing a book could be 60 pages.
Right.
Could be a little instructional manual on how to, I'm just pulling something out of my butt here, but how to be a good customer service person, right? How to provide excellent customer service on the phone. There are people who need to know this. And there are things, you do something like that, and then opportunities to maybe to sell that to a company who does a lot of customer service. They hire a lot of customer service people. Those people need to be trained.
Yeah.
What you write up might just be a good piece of training material. And you get that in front of the right person, and they're going to say, oh, you know what? I want to buy, 500 copies of this. And I want ongoing. I've got a friend who used to sell this training manual, this whole big long thing. And he ran into somebody at a business that said, let me see your notebook. And he said, I want this section and this section. How much? And he hadn't thought about it. And what he started to do then was to license to companies. You pick the modules out of this program that you want, and you pay for the licensing of this, and I'll provide you with material specific to this and specific to your company. And then when you need more, you pay me more, because I'm going to provide, and my God, it's a whole, it's a new way of doing business.
Yeah.
And it's not new, but that's what Microsoft did. They didn't sell DOS to IBM, right? That's, maybe you don't know, but for anybody who doesn't know the story, Bill Gates had the opportunity to provide an operating system for IBM's computers, right? That they came off the first PCs, and they just didn't have a software. What's the word? Branch of people, and for whatever reason, they went to a couple of different places, and Microsoft was one. And he said, sure, I'll do it for you, because they were a software company. I'll do it for you, but I'm not going to sell it to you. I'll license it to you. So you get to use it. You can label it. It's IBM DOS. But we get, $1 or whatever. I don't know what the deal is, but we get some money for every computer you put this on. So he became rich overnight because he essentially rented some software to IBM.
That's awesome.
So long way around to this idea that there are things that we can all do. We just need to get a little more, I think, introspective about our world and start being more objective and look around and start taking inventory maybe of what do I do? What am I good at?
Yeah.
Even if you don't know, this is what I love, and so this is what I can do. I'm going to follow Nicole's advice, and I'm going to go jump into what I love. Maybe you don't really feel all that passionate about anything that you're aware of, but there are things that you're good at doing, and that might be
enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that might be enough to get you started.
And who knows, from that might stem into what you do. What your passion is.
Yeah. And I know through my own experience in recent months that, number one, we don't do things because we're comfortable, right? And out there, we don't know that. And that might kill us. So we don't step outside the comfort zone. Partly that's because we think outside the comfort zone means you got to go so far that you can't see it anymore. Right? But the reality is you don't. You can step 8 inches out, and you're outside your comfort zone. And doing just that is going to give you a different perspective. Doors open, opportunities come along just because, you, instead of sitting in the back of the room, at a seminar or something and not saying anything, you raise your hand and ask a question or make a comment, or somebody's looking for a volunteer someplace and you say, okay, I'll help you out. I did that and ended up meeting Les Brown.
That's awesome.
And, so we just have to do a little bit of something outside of what we're used to doing.
Mm-hmm. Step out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, and your world can change overnight.
And to me, it's scary, and I get scared, but it's such a rush to me. I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm kind of an anxious person by nature, so then I'm just, sweaty palms, even before I get on stage. Every time, I'm just like, heart's beating in my chest, but then it's such a, powerful feeling too. I'm like, this is good, nervous is good, and then I get up there and I'm fine,
That's, a lot of people are like that. A lot of people are like that. Actors, performers, athletes.
Yeah.
All kinds of butterflies before the big boxing match and throwing up and all that, and then they go out there and they're on it.
I know.
There's some kind of a switch that flips for people.
Yeah.
It's I've sort of noticed this. We go from our like immediate world changes just waking up, right, to start with. You're sleeping and you're dreaming and as you're coming out of it, you're still there, and then you're as you wake up, you kind of have a choice to stay, right? But then when you open your eyes and that world is gone. Mm-hmm. And you're now in the middle of a new world. Right, very familiar. It was here yesterday, but it's a new world. And then you walk out of the house and get in the car and start driving down the freeway. Now you're in another world, and you get onto a stage and walk from off stage onto the stage, and now you're facing people and another world.
Yeah,
so it's interesting. To me, anyway. We go through. There's lots of little universes that we have a part in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's important to switch your environments, and that's why a lot of times, and that's another reason why I wanted to start bartending too. I mean, extra cash is always nice, but, I was just stuck in my house, and usually I put in 10, 12, 14-hour days, just me, my computer, my couch, and my dog, and I'm like, I miss people. Like, I'm going stir crazy, and I can do podcast shows, webinars, but it's not the same as people. I love people. I'm such a people person. So it's like, I got to get out. I'm going nuts.
Well, the physical change of environment is important.
Yeah.
And I relate 100% to what you just said about just, I've got the chair that I do most of my work from, and some days it's just hard.
Yeah.
Get up out of it. You've got so much to do, and but you got to find a way to, on some sort of a regular basis, to get outside of the four walls.
Right. I know, even my chiropractor, of course, goes back to my old joke, but I really do have a bad back and a bad neck, and I see a chiropractor about once a week, and he said even since I started getting more on my feet and, being like, just up on the job, he's like, oh my gosh, your back is so much better, your neck's good, your posture's good. I'm like, yes. So it's good to keep active. Yeah,
we're animals that are designed to be doing things.
I know.
We're not designed to sit.
Right. I know.
You fall apart when you don't do anything.
Yeah.
Mentally too.
Exactly.
Psychologically, yeah. We've got to be active and doing at some level.
Mm-hmm. and your energy levels go up. I mean, overall, I'm like, I feel so much better. I feel so happy. Like, I'm not dreading. I love my life, and the laptop life, I wouldn't change it for anything. But there are some mornings where I just sat there with my coffee, just like glaring at my computer, like, do I have to? And I knew I had to, but I'm like, I don't even want to turn it on because I know I'm going to be glued here for like 10 hours.
Sucked into the rabbit hole.
I know.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah. All right, young lady. I think maybe this is a good place to stop for the moment.
Okay.
Unless there's something else you really want to bring out and make sure we talk about right now, we can do that.
I don't have anything burning. No burning desires that are popping up, but. All
right. Well, let's call it at least for now, and then we'll talk about getting you back.
Yeah.
For a second conversation, and maybe we can work out the scheduling and have Gabi actually be here.
That'd be nice.
But before we go, I want you to let people know where to find you, where to find the book, where to find anything you want to share.
Okay. Yeah. So my personal website, it's only really branded towards my foster care work right now. I'm in the middle of a revamp, but it's NicoleZeien-Cox.com. I'm sure Tim will do the show notes.
Yeah.
But everything on social media, it's @ Nicole Zeien Cox. And then my book is on Amazon, but if you reach out to me, I can get you a personalized signed copy. So,
ooh.
Yeah. I like doing that. It's fun.
we may have to trade.
Yes, I love doing that too. Yeah. I need to get more books in, actually. And I tell you what, I have like 7 books I have to read right now. And
God, that's a short list.
One of my friends just asked me to do the foreword for his book coming out, so I'm trying to finish that one first, so then I can write that. But yeah,
awesome. I have a new goal right now. It's going on the bucket list. I want to meet you in person so that I can get a selfie with the famous Nicole Zeien.
I love that. And you're in San Francisco, right?
San Diego.
San Diego, that's right. California. Yeah, I'll come back to Cali.
Yeah, come on out. Come on out. We'll have some fun.
Awesome.
All right, hon. Thank you very much. This was a blast. I knew it would be. And yeah, let's get you back and we'll dig into something a little more woo-woo maybe, or
awesome.
Who knows where we go.
Sounds good.
Gabi always comes up with some good stuff. So
that's awesome.
All right, take care.
Thank you.
Everybody out there, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, this is Tim Starr. Thanks for joining me and Gabi on the universe between your ears. We really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us for a little while. And we'd like to see you again. So be sure to subscribe wherever it is you're consuming the podcast from, whether it's YouTube or Stitcher or iTunes or whatever the hell else is out there. We want to see you again. We also want to hear from you. So let us know what you think of each episode. Let us know if you got an idea for a future episode that you think would be just killer. Absolutely, let us know. All right? Thanks again, and we will see you next time around. Bye-bye.